Some people might feel that being New Zealand's leading historian is something like being the leading fashion designer in a nudist colony, but I don't actually agree with that. Thanks to the previous speakers for a new definition of 7 minutes. I think a much better one. Between 1790 and 1920, the American West grew from 100,000 poor people to 62 million rich people, the most explosive growth in human history. This is a well-known story. What may surprise you is that the American West had a forgotten twin, the British West, comprising Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and arguably South Africa. This West too grew explosively from 200,000 people to 24 million people, 1790, 1920, and they too were among the richest people in the world. The two Wests grew in much the same way. From 1815, a series of 20 great settlement booms ravened across both Wests, devastating nature and natives, but doubling or tripling settler populations and economies in a single decade. These frenetic booms were powered not by exports, but by growth itself, town making, farm making, rail making, road making. The settlers of 1850 lived off those of 1851, who lived off those of 1852. After 10 to 15 years, excuse me, each boom collapsed in a dramatic bust, known to US historians as panics. After a few years, each regional economy was reconstructed to supply staples such as meat and grain to its metropolis, New York and London. We can call this export rescue. Growth renewed, but was much slower than during booms. This manic roller coaster pattern of boom, bust, and export rescue amounted to a settler revolution. It helped build industrial Britain and the industrial eastern United States, and it integrated them with their Wests. The scale of export rescue was so great that each Western region, however distant, became tightly linked to its metropolis, culturally as well as economically. By the 1920s, 100 frozen meat ships linked New Zealand and London, just as 1,000 chilled fruit trains linked Southern California and New York. From the 1880s to the 1940s, Britain and its West were so tightly integrated that they comprised a virtual nation. Greater Britain, or Britain plus the White Dominions, equivalent to a fragmented United States, which has been mislaid by most historians. It was distinct from the Black Empire. Canadians, Australians, and New Zealanders did not consider themselves subjects of the British Empire, but co-owners of it. They saw themselves as Britons too, even better Britons, and they fought world wars as though this were true. The settler revolution also meant that the 19th century was the era of New York's America. In the 18th century, Boston and Philadelphia contested for dominance. In the 20th, Chicago and LA did so also. But in the 19th century, New York ruled the roost, and its growth was fed by its spreading Wests. So booms compressed time, allowing Melbourne and Chicago to grow from villages into megacities in a single generation. Export rescue compressed space, bridging the gap between frontier and metropolis. What caused this settler revolution? Growth-friendly Anglo institutions are a favourite for some. Democracy, the common law, a free press, and free markets incubated growth, according to this argument, and access to thinly populated Wests did the rest. The trouble here is that though the settler revolution was Anglo-prone, it was not exclusively Anglo. It also occurred in places like Siberia between the 1880s and 1914. Siberia too experienced booms, busts, and export rescue, and many other characteristics similar to the histories of Anglophone settler societies. Now, no one has yet accused Tsarist Russia of such things as democracy and a free press. Was the settler revolution simply the effect of globalizing rational capitalism, with booms as dynamic experiments, busts as creative destruction, and export rescue as the optimal outcome? In fact, export rescues were seldom unplanned. The thousands who poured onto Western beef ranches in the 1860s could scarcely have predicted the perfecting of chilled rail cars in the 1870s. If they had, why did they start with longhorn cattle, which New Yorkers did not like, instead of shorthorns, which they did? And the 20 busts really hurt. About 50% of farms and businesses went bankrupt during a typical bust, or were sold off for a song. Suicide rates rose, and towns went ghost in droves. If there was an invisible hand at work here, then it was epileptic. So what did cause the settler revolution? Boosterism, the world's first great advertising campaign, was a factor. Now, it's easy to ridicule. It had, for example, a giant vegetable fetish. California had 100-pound melons. New Zealand had 50-pound cabbages. But if we unravel this imagery, we find elements of both seduction and subversion. Through sheer abundance, 3 to 5 crops from one sowing, settler frontiers subverted the Protestant work ethic by offering lives as well as livings, leisure as well as income. This was part of a wider boom mentality that appealed to hopes and dreams as much as reason. This boom mentality created a viral optimism which you had to catch to succeed. It kept people thinking that this boom would not bust. Sound familiar? There is a social history of economics, a cultural history of the market, and understanding this is important for the present as well as for the past. Thank you.